Remember when Eddie Murphy was the biggest comedy star in the world? Because this movie sure hopes you do. We're talking about the man who single-handedly saved SNL from cancellation and had one of the most successful careers in Hollywood history. Audiences couldn't get enough of his manic energy and trademark quick tongue. Until a point.
A string of poor releases in the late 2000s handed the former box office titan a Razzie Award for Worst Actor and his first taste of true commercial failure. But the straw that finally broke the donkey's back was 1,000 Words.
A film where they took one of the most famously fast-talking and versatile voices in comedy history and created a premise to completely take away his greatest asset. A film reviewed so poorly that it caused the star to take nearly a decade-long hiatus from acting.
2012's 1,000 Words has a 0% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Not a single critic on the internet rated this movie positively. But just how bad is it? Is 1,000 Words the worst movie of all time? So Eddie Murphy plays a quick-witted, conniving literary agent who's a hotshot at the office and treats people around him poorly and doesn't really respect his wife or kids' needs. It's basically the plot to like every kids movie ever. But the writing in this one feels particularly off. And not just in like unfunny jokes, but as in the writers don't seem to fully understand just how like human conversation or time or cause and effect work. Like take this scene as the opening credits are rolling where Eddie Murphy is getting coffee before work. This is kind of what I'm talking about.
Hello? What? She's in labor? Well, tell her to stop pushing. Look, I can't miss the birth of my first child. I only went up to get some coffee. Go ahead, go ahead. Stack your pot. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Twins? It's twins. I'm having twins. Thank you. It's in the house? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
The whole scene just doesn't flow right. Like, I have so many questions about this one brief moment. Why would someone late to the birth of their child need to stop and get coffee? Why do construction workers love twins so much? Why does he just take a random coffee order from someone else without even knowing what he's drinking? Why is the whole thing lit like a damn State Farm commercial? The internal logic and flow within these scenes makes all the interactions feel so manufactured. It's like the writers have a checklist of moments they want to get to and just haphazardly wrote the rest of the movie to contort around these fixed few ideas without any real concern for how it affects the actual moment-to-moment flow of the story. And I have proof, because the coffee shop scene wasn't meant to fit within the movie. It's a shot for the trailer.
Jack McCaw would say anything to get what he wants.
Hello? She's in labor? Go ahead. Stack your pot. Come on. Thank you so much. I got a baby on the way. Thank you so much. Twins? It's twins! Thank you. It's on the house? Oh.
You can actively see how the dialogue is working to arrive at these fixed set pieces.
It's the transparent, expository style writing that first-year film students struggle to avoid. It all just feels amateur. It's like when you can tell the punchline of a joke well before the joke teller gets there. It's super tiring to listen to for 90 minutes. But it's not just the writing style that falls flat. The tempo of this film is incomprehensible. Because right after Eddie Murphy convinces his boss, played by a laughably underutilized Allison Janney, to try to let him sign this new age health guru as his next big author, he immediately heads down to one of the guru's yoga sessions and works his magic to sign him that afternoon. He also gets pricked by a weird tree, but we'll get to that in a second. But after some classic Eddie Murphy shenanigans, he signs the guru and he's feeling good. So he tells his assistant, played by the guy from the worst seasons of The Office, to clear his schedule because he's going to see his mama and
Let her know what a big star her boy is.
Okay, done, sire.
Ah!
And we cut to a Mexican-themed birthday party at the old folks' home where Eddie Murphy's drunk, dementia-laden mother ogles an old guy's junk.
Hey, Mill, I can see your cojones in that pantsuit. It's like you're smuggling walnuts in a polyester purse.
Okay, all right.
And then proceeds to not remember who Eddie Murphy is.
Happy birthday, Mo.
Raymond, is that you?
No, Ma, it's me, Jack, your son.
Where did any of this come from? It's shockingly depressing. It's quite a dark tone to strike seemingly out of nowhere so early into your PG-13 comedy movie. When I say this script has a tempo problem, I say it because we're not even 15 minutes into this movie. Eddie Murphy's gotten up, got his coffee, went to therapy, pitched a lead to his boss, attended a yoga session, signed the big client, and shared a touchingly tragic moment at his geriatric mother's questionably ethnic birthday party at the old folks' home in one in-movie day and 15 real-world minutes. Yeah, this movie has a bit of a pacing problem. Know what else this movie has a problem with? Its entire premise. And this is really the main reason why I wanted to discuss this movie in this series. Because after returning home and arguing with his wife, Kerry Washington, the magic tree that pricked him earlier suddenly appears in their backyard and destroys any chance of this movie even being remotely good. Because this tree has certain magical properties.
You and this tree are now connected.
Connected?
The more you talk, the more leaves fall, the sicker you get.
Hey, wait a second. Hold on a second. You telling me that you think whatever happens to the tree happens to me?
Yes.
And there's your movie. Anytime Eddie Murphy says a word, a leaf falls off the tree. And so now, the comic famous for his fast-talking, energetic delivery has to spend 60 minutes of runtime trying to talk as little as possible. I cannot overstate how unfathomably bad this idea is. On its own, the premise is not the worst thing I've ever heard, but casting Eddie Murphy in this role is such a level of self-sabotage beyond anything I've seen in Hollywood in recent years. This is like casting Jim Carrey in the role of a guy with facial paralysis. It's just a movie designed to ruin the star's greatest strength. I've truly never seen anything like it. It also gets old really fast. Oh, Eddie Murphy wants his coffee a certain way, but he can't tell the barista. Oh, Eddie Murphy has an important work meeting, but he can't talk, so his assistant tries to act like him. Oh, Eddie Murphy tries to explain to his wife why he's acting all weird, but she just can't understand him. It's just not very interesting. And I think the writers knew this because they added another weird wrinkle to the story. Not only does the tree lose leaves when Eddie Murphy speaks, he can also feel what the tree feels. Like, Eddie Murphy tries to chop down the tree in frustration and it hurts him too. And in another scene, the landscapers gas the tree, and therefore Eddie Murphy gets super baked. And they play Because I Got High by Afro Man, because of course this movie is going to make every dated, played-out reference that it can. None of this makes any sense, is never really properly explained, and doesn't even impact the story at all that much either. Like, the landscaper's poison gas does absolutely nothing to the tree, it just gives Eddie Murphy an excuse to act high. It's like the writers knew their story was hella boring and ad hoc'd in a bunch of zany visual gags to prevent the kids from falling asleep and maybe help zhuzh up the trailers a little bit. They certainly need something since they've muted their greatest comedic asset and have turned the talented Kerry Washington into the most generic cliche wife character of all time. Which actually brings me to another major issue with this movie: how it treats the female lead. Because all of this is happening while Eddie Murphy's character is waiting for the guru to come back from Bolivia with some answers as to what's happening to him. But all this is putting some strain on his relationship with Kerry Washington. They were already having marital issues even before the tree showed up, and now they just had this whole heated argument where she scolded him for not being committed to their life together. This is how that scene ends.
You gotta talk to me. You're like a mental patient with the pointing and the grunting. What? Oh, all of my talking is making you sick. That's great. You know what? I won't talk anymore.
Clearly she's mad. This is a serious fight, and it's been an ongoing one. And then the literal next scene Kerry Washington is in, she's talking to her friend at the store. And rather than be supportive or listening to Kerry's problems, or rightfully shaming Eddie Murphy for not caring about his wife and son, her friend is just roasting her for not fucking her husband.
He's not sleeping. I'm not sleeping. Jack's not getting any ass. Can you? He won't even baby-proof the kitchen. Why in the world would I give him some?
Are you wearing granny panties right now and a nursing bra?
I am not answering that.
You don't have to.
Like, this is all they talk about. Her solution to their marital troubles of her husband not communicating or giving a shit about their child together is to get a hotel room and dress up in lingerie. And she just does it. The last time she and Eddie Murphy were on screen together, they were having a serious dispute. Now she's doing this? This is like how 8th grade boys think married couples resolve their issues. When you're a shitty husband and father, your wife will book a hotel room and dress up all sexy for you and try to change your mind about it according to this movie. Checks out. And who's watching their 1-year-old son right now, by the way? I hope it's not Eddie Murphy's fading mother. In reality, this scene likely exists so they can make the joke of your wife saying,
Here's how it's gonna work, baby. The more you say, the more I do. Come on, then say it. Tell me what you want me to do. Yeah, talk dirty. Come on, Jack.
But then, haha, Eddie Murphy can't actually tell her anything. Get it? That's every guy's fantasy. I wish my bitch wife would talk to me that way, said the writer of this movie probably. It's just another example of sacrificing coherent storytelling for jokes. Only this time it's at the expense of the female lead's agency.
not the best look. And no, for those of you wondering, 1,000 words does not in fact pass the Bechdel test. So Eddie Murphy is eventually fired from his job, and Kerry Washington says she's gonna leave him. So his only hope is Sinja coming back with some answers from Bolivia. Also, side note, why is the guru from Bolivia? Like, he's played by Cliff Curtis, who's from New Zealand. But more importantly, his character is a practicing guru preaching about traditional Eastern philosophy. They don't explicitly say he's Southeast Asian, but every part of his character points to that in the most on-the-nose way possible. Like, his name is pronounced Sinja, not Sinya. Why is this dude going to Bolivia? It's not like his vacation either. He implies he's from there. Some of these creative choices in this movie are just baffling to me. But anyway, Sinja doesn't have any answers for Eddie Murphy, so he goes home and just hits rock bottom. He's depressed, he's hopeless, and now the tree only has a few leaves left. But then he finally reads Sinja's book he's been pitching for all of the movie, and he finally gets it. And so he goes to his wife and child, who in the last scene walked out on him, mind you, and says this.
You, me. We. Eternity.
And it works. I was cackling the first time I watched this scene. You, me, we, eternity. What are we doing here? You got your lead actor doing caveman talk at the emotional climax of your movie. And now the movie's basically done. He goes around using his last few leaves to make right all the people he harmed throughout the story, which ends with him going back to his mom's birthday party. And yes, it's her birthday again, by the way. So I guess Eddie Murphy has just spent like a year not talking. This movie is written with just zero consideration for chronology or continuity. It's wild.
But he sees his mom again, and they share this touching moment where she finally recognizes him and basically tells him to forgive his father for leaving them.
And then he goes to the cemetery where his father is buried and has this trippy Game of Thrones hold the door moment where he's in a flashback as himself, talking to his younger self, and his younger self basically guilts him for being a shitty father. And he's all like, but I'm not a shitty father who left you. That's the shitty father who left you. I'm you. But then it all hits him. He's turned into the shitty father just like his dad. And so he uses his last 3 leaves to finally forgive his dad for leaving them. And then he freaking drops dead. For about 30 seconds. Wouldn't it have just been awesome if he actually just died and the movie ended right then and there? But alas, it's a PG-13 movie. Instead, the tree blooms again, and Eddie Murphy becomes a self-help book huckster himself, and has a newfound appreciation for life and his family, yada yada yada, story over. This movie was weird, man. It's PG-13, but it's written like a kid's movie with the occasional curse word thrown in there. Everyone in it is just so stupid. So much of the plot depends on either the main or supporting characters having zero common sense. A lot of yelling at the screen moments in this one. Whole scenes exist not to further plot or develop character meaningfully, but to transparently and ham-fistedly state the main character's motivation or some lame punchline. There's also constant orchestral swells to tell you how to feel about everything. And this makes the movie feel like 20 to 30 years older than it actually is. The script is cliche and tropey as hell. There's literally a scene where Eddie Murphy rescues a cat from a tree. Is this 1950? Also, the filmmakers must think accents are hilarious because every time they have someone do an accent in this movie, it's the most exaggerated accent possible.
Christian, this is Le Jack.
Bonjour. I've heard a lot about of you.
This is a beautiful tree, my friend. Please tell me why you would plant a tree right in the middle of the patio.
I don't plant a tree.
You don't plant a tree.
I be here all day fixing the sprinkler. I coming back to pick up my things and boom, it's a tree here.
Cuidado, eh? You breathe that stuff in and boom, it make you loco.
Some other small things I noticed throughout my viewing. There's a scene midway through the movie where Eddie Murphy pisses off the valet guy, and so the guy parks his car under a tree with a bunch of birds in it. Then half the movie happens. Eddie Murphy gets fired, so he doesn't even work where that valet works anymore. And then at the very end of the movie, the guy just gives Eddie Murphy his car back covered in bird poop. Like, they set up a joke and just completely forgot about it until the very end, making the punchline make absolutely no sense. We literally see him in this car between these scenes. Continuity? Overrated. And prepare to witness the single biggest piece of writer projection in the history of cinema.
Oh God, and you hate the story. Okay, but the writing is good, right? No? Well, why don't you lie to me?
You've been lying to me for 3 years about how you couldn't read it. Now suddenly you read it, you hate it, it sucks, and you just smashed my hopes on the rocks of, hey, Wayne, go back to Nebraska and shave sheep with your dad. You don't know what it's like to be a writer. I hate myself. I hate myself. You get that? I hate myself.
Also, the way that Eddie Murphy connects to the guru when he's in Bolivia might be the most unrealistic part in this movie about the magic voodoo tree.
Country code Bolivia. City Potosi. Business listing La Paz.
Gracias por llamar al Centro Espiritual La Paz de Potosí.
Sinja!
Dr. Sinja, le conectará con el Dr. Sinja. Enseguida, señor.
Yes!
Hello, this is Dr. Sinja. Who's calling?
Imagine thinking phones work this way. On an international call, nonetheless. Also, this admittedly made me chuckle. But all things considered, is this truly the worst movie of all time? 0% on Rotten Tomatoes? Is it really that bad? Well, let's consider the things that this movie actually did right. I like this shot of Eddie Murphy in all black surrounded by the peacefully meditating yoga class in all white. That's decent visual storytelling for a minute there. I also like the bit where Eddie Murphy is learning the rules of what makes the leaves fall off. The way that he realizes written words count too is done pretty well. If I were 13, the theoretical intended age for this movie, I probably would have laughed when the 2 leaves fell off after he flipped off the tree. One also can't deny the good casting decisions that the filmmakers made.
Jack McBrayer as the overtly wholesome barista who Eddie Murphy wants to yell at but can't is objectively perfect casting.
And I thought Eddie Murphy and New Dwight had pretty good chemistry in some scenes. It's a damn shame that couldn't have been explored further, you know, with Murphy actually speaking, but even still, the two of them had some comedic synergy. Clark Duke also had the only line in the whole movie that actually made me laugh intentionally.
Welcome to my office, the outer manifestation of my inner being. You're both inside me.
Listen, this movie is troubled in many ways. The premise is flawed, the writing is hackneyed, and the gags get old quickly when the leading man is muted for most of the movie. But I would be very surprised if this ended up the worst movie on our list. We're trying to find the absolute bottom of the movie barrel. And 1,000 Words might not be Eddie Murphy's finest moment, but it's not the worst movie of all time. Hell, it's not even Eddie Murphy's most unwatchable movie. I'm not sure I agree with the 0% Rotten Tomatoes rating, and most viewers don't seem to either. It's not good, but it's harmless enough. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being a movie you'd say was okay after viewing, and 10 being the actual undisputed worst thing ever put to screen, 1,000 Words is like a light 4. It's definitely bad in too many ways to be considered anywhere near decent, but it also has an interesting enough premise, a couple of chuckle-worthy moments here and there, and a wholesome enough message that you at least don't come away from it feeling cheated or upset or downright angry at the filmmakers. And I suspect that won't be the case for all of the films on our list. So while it isn't anything special, 1,000 Words is not the worst movie of all time. I hope you enjoyed the first review of the worst movie of all time series. I'm going to try to keep these more concise going forward, but this one was too weird to not talk about at length, and I wanted to give it its proper justice. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, YouTube stuff. I hope you enjoyed. I appreciate you all, and I will see you all next time.